Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're doing another State of Gaming, talking about the diverging market. Now this has been happening for a few months, but I think it's becoming more pronounced now in 2024, and I think it's also going to dictate the rest of the decade, and while I don't think either side is going to completely disappear, I definitely think things are starting to shift in the other direction that we haven't seen for quite a while. And so, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Let me go ahead and check my audio here. Just want to make sure this is sounding okay. Perfect, sounds great. Okay, so yeah, thanks for tuning in. I do a State of Gaming every so often, and this can either be a deeper dive into a company or into the gaming industry itself. And this is just more of like podcasts. And if you guys are interested too, I just did my Assassin's Creed Mirage initial look. It's roughly about an hour and 40 minutes with my thoughts at the end for about another 10-ish minutes or so, talking about everything I can think of during the extent of my gameplay. And currently Mirage 2 is on about $25 no matter where you are. And it's about half the cost of what it used to be. And I think for half the cost, it's actually a pretty good game. I think it's worth playing if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, so you can get some more of the story. But let's go ahead and get into this State of Gaming. So the diverging market of trend versus risk. And I'm labeling it this way because I feel like there's a large part of the gaming industry that has been following the trend for quite some time, and as many of us probably know, this is live service. But the other side of that coin has been more innovation or riskier things or really big projects. Okay, something like Destiny or like Grand Theft Auto 5, that was a really big project. We have Grand Theft Auto 6 coming probably next year. That's my guess anyway. But nothing official yet. I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear something. But we've been having more kind of like story-driven games being pushed aside because, again, they don't make enough money. But not all live service is really making money anyway. And we've had some pretty big closures or games that are no longer being supported or canceled early since 2022. And we had some more in 2023, and we're having more in 2024. We actually had quite a few big cancellations in 2023 in February. And so, like, Insurgents or X-Fire, let's see, Crossfire X, I think, was another one. We also had Babylon's Fall, and there's just been multiple games that just haven't really done that great. Some story-driven games really haven't done that great either, but again, I think they're kind of just floundering around without really a purpose, without really a focus of being able to tell the story. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about this today. And so, you know, in the beginning, it was just kind of a lot of arcadey stuff, right? Kind of like ping pong or, I don't know, think of another one. There's some other very, very simple games, or two like Tetris. That'd be another great example. But then we started getting into the more story-driven games in the Atari and, you know, the NES and the Dreamcast and Saturn and all of these others. Which I didn't play most of those. It was a little before my time. But then, you know, with the internet, we also had the creation of the MMO and, you know, the massive multiplayer online. And those games started actually getting pretty big, but most of those, again, were just on PC. And we branched into multiplayer, which, you know, really kind of started this console race that we had. You know, PlayStation entered it in '95, and then we had Xbox entering it the next generation after that. And now we've basically had Nintendo, Sony, and Xbox that have been making consoles, you know, every kind of roughly next generation, every, you know, anywhere from like 7 to 10 years they've been making a new console. Nintendo has a little bit of a faster turnover rate lately, and I think they need to do that because, again, they can't graphically necessarily, or the hardware can't quite keep up for some of the ports. And some of the ports, too, are honestly pretty bad for Nintendo, especially lately with, like, the Wii U and the Switch. Some of those ports just haven't gone over very well at all, like Mortal Kombat. God, that one was brutal. But, you know, we've also had Sony and Xbox, and then we've also had stuff on PC, but we do have this definite trend where it's not just free to play anymore. We actually pay money for some of these arena games. And while some of them are still free to play, and I do think mostly they'll be successful and they'll stick around, we have more and more live service games that are not lasting as long as some of these companies think, and they're just starting to really hemorrhage money. But like with this multiplayer space, this really kind of made it possible, setting up for what we see today with live service, and also too with the creation of DLC, which we didn't really start seeing that until probably like mid or late 2000s, but really started picking up in 2010s. And then yeah, now we don't even really have DLC. We just have like battle pass and stuff. But hey, we'll get into that. We've also had big expansions into open world, which were wonderful for being able to tell stories and having a lot of content and action going on and a lot of things to do and explore. We've also had, again, the continuation of free-to-play models. A lot of these were starting to come around in 2000s, and there's still even more coming up basically every day. And some of these have even moved into what I would call more mobile free-to-play, where there's more kind of like gotcha mechanics and things that can be a little more frustrating and basically making it easy for you in the beginning and then making it super grindy to the point of frustration to get you to buy. And now these kind of gotcha mechanics have even shown up more in some AAA games. And I think like Star Wars Battlefront 2, the remake, if you want to call it, by EA, had a ton of loot boxes. And there's been an issue with loot boxes, which they're not as common anymore. But again, these live service-ish companies are still trying to continue to find ever creative ways to ultimately get our money. And then, too, around kind of like the latter half of 2010s, we had these arena shooters, which have really just been taking over since like 2017, 2018. And this is where we've gotten, Overwatch. This is where we've gotten Siege. I think Siege was 2015, and then Overwatch was also 2015 or 16, and then we had Fortnite after that. So we've had quite a few of these arena shooters. Again, companies just getting into it, still even trying today, like the finals. While there's really not a ton of innovation there, they have to get a big enough player base, and arena shooters have just been the way to just try to get more money. And I think ultimately companies are doing this just because $60 is not enough to keep the sustainability of the company. There's a lot more games and availability out there now than there used to be. There's even more companies and smaller studios and AA and a heck of a lot more indies than there used to be. And again, there's only so many people that want to play games. There's only so much time in a day to play those games, and so much money to buy them and to invest in them. And so just think about that, folks. Like, there's way more games than we could ever play in multiple lifetimes, even if we just cut out the indie games and stuck with AA and AAA. I mean, there's hundreds of games a year, and we're not including the ones that are made for PC that never come to console. We're not including other live service games or mobile games. I mean, there are a ton of, or even other indies, there's just a ton of games to actually play. And yeah, they all take time and they all cost money, and so I don't think there's really just enough to go around, which is, frustrating. And so after the arena shooter, what's next? Leave it down in the comments. What do you guys think? I'm going to ultimately share my thoughts when we do our recap in January 2025 for 2024. And we do a recap in January to kind of think about what's happened. So we talk about some of the bigger news, and we kind of think about where the industry could be going or where it could be headed. And we honestly really enjoy doing that, so stay tuned for that. But lately, definitely the focus has been live service, microtransactions, MTX, being able to just get as much money as they can, be able to find ever creative ways to get our money or to sell us as little as they can for the biggest amount of profit and keeping those profit margins high. Now, during the lockdowns, there was a lot of people that had a lot of free time, and we also had a lot of stimulus money across like 100 different nations, and so yeah, a lot of extra time and a lot of extra money. And so I think that's where this kind of live service boom has really come from, because we've seen the success of Overwatch, we've seen the success of Siege, or like Fortnite or some others, and while we had some still great story games every once in a while, they've really been pushed out a lot of the time, and the large focus now has just been the largest grossing games being live service, and that's what's being followed. And so we've had the free-to-play models, the arena shooters, the battle passes, and again, that's how they get you. It's free to play, but again, it's like it's all about the cosmetics and stuff. And while I personally can't really understand why that's so important, a certain color or texture, even though while some of these do look cool, I actually want gameplay. I want things to engage with. I want character development. I want stories. I want climatic scenes and being a part of that and making memories, and even just some of the co-op stuff like Ghost Recon Wildlands, or like We Were Here, which is a small indie series, or like The Quarry, or being able to even play like some of the other Assassin's Creed games, like Syndicate I think was one, and Unity, and Brotherhood might have been another one. But yeah, like the co-op stuff, like some of us grew up with Halo, and those were amazing times. Call of Duty was another one, playing with the campaigns with people, and just having a blast, or doing the Spec Ops missions for Modern Warfare 2 and 3, and the challenges, and just doing it with other people, and making those memories, bonding with other players. That was just really, really fun. But again, now it's just lately, hey, just keep buying our stuff, keep collecting our stuff, and keep paying us money. And that's just what's been going on. And so the story-driven has really just kind of been, in my opinion, left for dead in most cases. One studio that's been pumping out some really good bangers has actually been, or the publisher anyway, I should say, is Take-Two Interactive. As much as I don't like some of their practices, Rockstar has actually been creating some wonderful games. So we had Red Dead 2, and we also had, we just had another one. Grand Theft Auto 6 will be coming out shortly. And those will be wonderful story-driven games, I have no doubt of that, but they're also incredibly huge. We also had Bungie with Destiny. We also had some other great storytelling from like Santa Monica Studios with God of War 1 and 2. And so there are good story games out there. But boy, they really feel like far and few between. And so, but ultimately these games that get Game of the Year, that are really praised, get a lot of publicity, they're the story-driven games, because again, we can actually take time to connect with those. So like, Larian Studios made Baldur's Gate 3, and then the year before that was, that was last year. And then, before that was Elden Ring by From Software, which was wonderful. And again, these are just companies that know their audience, and they make their game for their audience and try to innovate and improve it and make it a more fun and engaging experience. While a lot of these live services, they're just focused on just, again, getting as much money as they can, which to me is frustrating. It's like, if you actually want my money, provide me some utility. Don't just provide me some colors and some flashy stuff so that I can ultimately brag silently on the field that, ooh, look, I got a gold gun. While that's cool and all for what it is, it doesn't make gaming, and I think some of the younger generations have missed that. But yeah, this trend chasing has been extremely aggressive from a lot of companies, and lately we've seen that the moneymakers, the Game of the Years, again, they've been the story-driven games, like the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion is another one, Pal World, Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2. They've actually been pretty good. And we've even seen some canceled live service and some games shining out, like the ones that I mentioned. But even it's getting to a point now where the quality, too, just really doesn't seem to be there. And so we're having studio closures, we're having layoffs, we're having delays. And maybe while some of these companies or some of these devs still did a good job, like Tango Gameworks with Hi-Fi Rush and Evil Within 1 and 2, they're gone now. And even if you do a great job and you release a Game of the Year like Hi-Fi Rush, it doesn't mean you're going to be safe or protected. And that, too, is honestly a scary situation of the times. But I think it's telling as well that the publishers, the big umbrella companies, they're feeling the pressure and the pain for a lot of stuff because they're unable to keep those margins high because they pay more in taxes, they're paying more in fees, they're paying more in equipment costs, they're paying more for their employees. And so to keep those margins high enough and to keep their investors happy, they have to show growth somehow. Unfortunately, I don't think it has to always be that way. I think sustainability can also be a good model. But yeah, they have to show growth, and so we're having these layoffs. And these companies, the employee is the most expensive part of any business. It's not the licensing, it's not the equipment, it's not the building even. It's the employees that actually work there. And, that's why we're seeing these, is because, again, the stimulus money from all of these countries during the lockdowns is basically over. And now these companies have bit off more than they've chewed. And they didn't really think that things could go the other way, unfortunately, which, again, is kind of ridiculous. I've actually been waiting for it because I want to buy some more property, and there's some other things I want to get, but I want to get it at a cheaper price. And unfortunately, it'll be at someone else's detriment. But, it's all about when you buy, folks. That's really the name of the game. But yeah, now we have a dedicated focus again. Luckily, with all of this stuff and all of this chaos kind of going on, we've had more layoffs already this year than the entirety of last year, which is, again, pretty incredible. And I don't think a lot of news services even really cover it anymore. But we're having a better dedicated focus on story games again. And even kind of like a continuation of expansion with free-to-play models. Okay, like the First Descendant is one of them. The Finals would be another one, which, again, these games haven't even been out for a year, but I think companies are trying anything that they can to actually keep things going. Or we're seeing kind of a pullback, like with Destiny 2. Hey, we're not going to be making these full, huge, big-fledged DLCs anymore that you pay once a year. We're just going to make kind of smaller iterations that you pay for, and you're going to get like 3 of these a year. And, so one every 4 months, which people will blow through them in a couple of weeks or less, and then they'll be done. And I think, too, Bungie is going to focus more on the PvP side and giving more maps to actually keep people playing so that they can have the opportunity to continue to buy microtransactions. But yeah, there is definitely pain in the industry, and we're starting to see this split where some companies have said, hey, we're going to focus more on story, like From Software, like Larian, like BioWare, and CD Projekt Red, which is wonderful. I'm so thankful for this. And we'll continue to see other companies that say, no, we're going to continue on with live service, like Activision Blizzard, and they're going to keep doing what they're doing to try to make it work. And again, while I don't think live service is going to completely go away, I do think it's definitely going to shrink. And I think that's what we're seeing with these closing studios, with these layoffs. And really, they're across the board. There isn't a single company now that hasn't had layoffs in the gaming industry, at least that I know of. And we're also having a lot of smaller studios close because they don't make enough money to keep the studio open. And generally speaking, if your studio is not doing a good job, you close. Now, there's some caveats to that, like with Tango Gameworks, which I don't think a lot of us are going to forgive that anytime soon. But, unfortunately, it is just business. That is just how it is, regardless of what type of government you have or where you are in the world. If your company isn't making money, you have to make cuts somewhere. And it sucks. And I think in most cases, it's not like they don't care. It's just they have to cut somewhere. And they'd rather cut to be cautious now than try to save as long as they can and then have a whole bunch of cuts all at once. Because that's worse usually for the company and worse for morale. But too, if you have cuts all the time, like every 4 months, that's not going to help either. But yeah, so we do have some story games. We do have some other live service games, but we have more live services coming, like Concord and Marathon. We also have more story games coming, like Fable and Doom. And we haven't heard officially about The Last of Us 3, but we've also had a lot of cancellations as well. Embracer Group last year canceled 29 games. Sony canceled 6 of their 12 live service. We've also had, again, Arcane Austin Studios and Tango Gameworks. They were both going to be working on pitching the next game, and with Microsoft, and well, they don't exist anymore. They're gone. Some of those people have been reintegrated into somewhere else, like with ZeniMax, and some of them they're just laid off. And I think this sucks. And this honestly just happened with Bungie too. They're going to lose 17% of their studio to layoffs. They're going to have another, I think, 12 or 13% be moved to different studios within Sony, like Santa Monica, Naughty Dog. And then there's another like 2 or 3% that are just kind of taking an early retirement, or taking like a quick package and just getting out of there. And so by the time you're done adding everything up, when everything's said and done, Bungie is going to have about a 30-ish% less employees there working on Destiny and working on Marathon. And that's going to be a little rough. So I am curious how Marathon is going to be and how stuff's going to roll out with the continuation of Destiny 2. But, I don't think we're going to get a Destiny 3. I don't think we're going to see anything else. It's basically just going to be Marathon and continuing on with Destiny 2 as it is, without any real big story expansions for this foreseeable future, until Bungie is actually able to announce something else. But yeah, the pain that we're experiencing in the industry is not done. But studios are starting to see the writing on the wall that there isn't as much money as there used to be. And so there was a survey to devs. Several hundred responded back, which was great. And about 60% of them are scared that live service is still a good business model. So these companies, they are paying attention. And if you're one of those guys that sees live service ultimately for what it is, good for you. Keep voting with your money. I'm doing the same thing. Until they can actually provide me with real utility and gameplay experience, I don't want their digital shopping closet stuff. I don't care that this is blue instead of green or something, or that this has more frills on it, or that it shines. Okay? I need something more than that in order to get my money. But too, we've had some of our biggest failures actually be live service too. And this is what they're paying attention to. So we've had Suicide Squad kill the Justice League. Skull and Bones is another one. Concord is also going to be added to this list. We also had Forspoken, which wasn't a live service game. But yeah, Forspoken again was a fairly large budget that just again didn't really have any purpose or soul into it. It's just kind of dead. And we also had Foam Stars. Again, that isn't looking very good. That's another small live service. Synced was another one, which most people haven't even heard of. But yeah, that game was going for about 10 months, and now it's done. They're going to shut the servers. Multiverse, again, really doesn't look that great. There's still some people that play it. I saw someone playing it on Twitch earlier today. But again, Multiverse, I can't see it really sticking around because, again, we didn't really ask for another Smash Bros., right? It's just trend following, and that ultimately really doesn't make you money unless you really innovate in some way, in a big way. And I think that's what these publishers are misunderstanding. And the delays, they haven't helped either. It's like, hey, this game's coming out. Oh, just kidding. Oh, just kidding. Oh, just kidding. And they keep pushing it back and delaying it. I mean, we had Starfield delayed for like 8 or 10 months. We had Kill the Justice League delayed for 10 months. We had even Assassin's Creed Mirage, which there's still bugs in it. There's still some things that are kind of cutting corners and kind of cheap about it, and that's why I don't think it's worth $50. But yeah, even this was delayed a couple of times. And is Assassin's Creed Shadows going to be any better? I don't know. I'm kind of curious. I really am. I might actually pick up a month of Ubisoft Plus just so I can play it and present it here on the channel. Which, again, that would only be $18. A heck of a lot cheaper than $70, I'll tell you that much. But I'll be doing the same thing for Outlaws. But I am a little bit more excited for Outlaws, and maybe I'll dig into that later. But yeah, we've had a lot of failures. And we've had a lot of delays, and that hasn't been helping either. And with these failures, these companies are like, well, we're having to restructure, we're having to lay off. Hey, let's do some remasters so we can actually be pulling in some money. And like, I think the best example of this is Aspyr right now under Embracer Group. Aspyr has put out 6 games in 6 months, and they are cranking out these puppies pretty quick. And like, the models aren't redone. There's still some issues or frustrations with the camera, or in some cases the camera is actually worse. But like, the 4K is there, the textures are redone in many cases, and the games at least run pretty well. But unfortunately, like Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection did not run well. and that ended up being awful. But like we're seeing this from Square Enix, Capcom, Ubisoft, Sony, Xbox, etc. We're seeing some of these, you know, expansions into stuff. Even EA, like they did a Dead Space remake for $70, but that ended up being really good. But again, it didn't make enough money for them to greenlight Dead Space 2 and 3, which I wish they would have. That would have been wonderful. So yeah, but you know, not just the companies deciding on what they're going to make for what type of game they're going to make or what type of genre. The gamers, they're split too. We have older folks like me, generally speaking. If you're 25 or older, you're frustrated with the gaming industry. You see what live service is, what it's become, because we all know what gaming used to be like in the 90s or 2000s, and it's just insanely different now. And a lot of times we avoid live service or we pay it at a cheaper price. In games like Baldur's Gate 3 or Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring, we're willing to pay max amount of money for these games because, again, they're built really well. They're not trying to take more money than what they, quote, deserve, in our opinion. And they're well-built games. They're built for us. They're not built just to be money hogs and just to continuously get more money from us. It feels kind of scammy. But others are willing to buy the bundles, willing to buy the packages and the skins and whatever and grind for stuff because they like all of that stuff. It's kind of like a little pick of endorphins or a dopamine where they're like, woohoo, I leveled up, you know, and it does feel good. But again, I feel like those players, while it's not wrong to play any of those games, I feel like they're accepting something that's inferior compared to what the gaming industry used to be. And will it ever come back? I don't know. But you know, play some of the older stuff. I think a great comparison right now is Black Flag, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, compared to Skull and Bones. Two different studios, but under the same publisher. And two completely different games. Completely different styles, completely different immersions, and different focuses. And one game was roughly 6 years in development, or 7, and the other one was 13 years in development. You know, twice as long. And the one that was twice as long in development, it just sucks ass. I'm not even kidding. It's horrible. I played the beta, and it's just a frustrating thing. So which split do you think is going to win ultimately? Because we got the rest of the decade left. We got another 6 years. Which one is going to win? Money right now, a lot of these big AAA companies, money's on live service. They're still pumping into that. They're still going to keep working with it until it really doesn't make money anymore. But in the process, they're going to destroy the reputation of some of these developers like Rocksteady. Okay, they made the Batman Arkham games, which was wonderful, and then they came out with Suicide Squad, and it's like, what the frick is this? This is horrible. This is ridiculous. But the public, like us, a lot of us want to go back to story-driven games again. And while some of the remakes and remasters are fun or enjoyable, or maybe like this where DLCs are turned into full-fledged games for release, we still feel kind of cheated. We still want something new, something to engage with. Or there's other classics. It's like, hey, give us Jak and Daxter, give us Ratchet and Clank, give us Colony Wars, give us, etc. Or even just Marathon. Give us the real Marathon. Don't just give us a PvP shooter. That is doing it a disservice. But which camp are you in? I'm honestly very curious. While I have my own opinions, it doesn't mean that yours don't matter. And it takes all of us to make up a market for the gaming industry. And while we don't have influence individually, we do have influence in mass. And I ask you to consider why you buy what you buy. And are you having fun with the gaming industry, and do you like it, or are you just kind of complaining all the time? When I started complaining more often than not and getting frustrated, it was just kind of more or less like, I want something better. And so I'm willing to spend less money on the companies that are just trying to get my money, and I'm giving my money to like studios like From Software and Larian when they're trying to create real stories and real experiences. So personally, I think good games are in both areas, and I play both. But generally speaking, when I have the opportunity, I pay for the story-driven games that aren't live service to death, and I pay less or just play for free the live service ones. And I really don't give them my money. And I really play live service games if some of my friends do, okay, like Warzone, for example, or like Halo Infinite, maybe. And, it's okay to do that, but that's just personally how I do it. So thanks for tuning in, folks. You can always follow me, too, at GamingGarbage22. You can also follow me over at Twitch. Don't turn on then don't forget our Discord, not just to chat mingle, but also to find others to play with, regardless of gamer platform. And hopefully you guys are doing well and beating the heat. We're trying. And with that, we'll see you on the next one, folks.